My name is Drew Broach from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We're out here in Veterans Memorial Square in Metairie at the intersection of Veterans Memorial Boulevard and Causeway Boulevard, right opposite Lakeside Shopping Center. It's Veterans Day 2018, as it is every year on November 11th, Veterans Day. This one's a special Veterans Day, though, because today, November 11th, 2018, marks the 100 years since the end of World War I, on November 11th, 1918. And we're here in Veterans Memorial Park in Metairie to tell you about somewhat of a mysterious or obscure little plaque that recently appeared in this park, having been relocated from elsewhere in Metairie. But first I want to tell you a little bit about World War I. 4.7 million Americans served in World War I. They were the people who the Boston Globe once said they were the heroes of their time, the doughboys who stormed France in 1917 to save the world from German aggressors. More than 110,000 Americans died in that war, and for years afterwards, the survivors led the nation's parades, aided the veterans who preceded them, and advised the ones who followed. That was the Boston Globe writing about World War I veterans. Many veterans of World War I joined the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and other service organizations. But after World War II, they formed their own charity, the Veterans of World War I of the USA Incorporated. Some say they felt overwhelmed and ignored in the American Legion by the huge influx of World War II veterans. Officially, these World War I veterans formed their own lobbying efforts, their own organizations, to coordinate lobbying efforts for pensions, health care, and other benefits. Unlike later veterans of military service, these World War I veterans had not been given any government-sponsored home loans, education benefits, insurance, or retirement accounts. Their organization, the Veterans of World War I, was chartered by Congress in 1958. The organization arranged itself in states, districts, and barracks, and the individuals were called buddies. They had their own newsletter, their own newspaper, they had a ladies' auxiliary, and they had medals for officers of the organization. Here's a look at what their medal looked like. What we're looking at here is a plaque that was, at the bottom you can read, erected by Veterans of World War I, Jefferson Barracks, 1881. This monument was erected in Metairie on Bonneville Boulevard, right near Veterans, in 1969. That was 51 years after the war ended. In 1968, the year before that, they had held their national convention at the Young Hotel in New Orleans. At the time, there were 234,111 members of the Veterans of World War I. But they were dying at the rate of 1 every 4 minutes. In fact, one of the veterans died at the convention banquet that year. By 1989, there were 100,000 World War I veterans remaining in the United States, and their average age was 94. 5 years later, there were only 25,000, and their average age was 98. The last American veteran of World War I, Frank Buckles of West Virginia, died in 2011, 7 years ago. He was 110 years old. This plaque that you see here in Veterans Memorial Square in Metairie, as I said, was erected in 1969 on Bonneville Boulevard in Metairie, right off Veterans. But a few months ago, Jefferson Parish removed this monument from there, along with another very large multi-part monument put up by the Lions Club to veterans of various wars and various services. They removed the latter one for some road projects that were going to take place, and that they needed to get the monuments out of the way to improve the roadway. This plaque here, however, was not in the way of any road projects, but there were no sponsors around for it anymore. All the veterans of World War I had died. Other veteran service organizations had been taking care of it and had been holding annual events there, but largely this one was forgotten. So the parish decided to move this one also, to put it in place with all of its other, or many of its other war monuments, all here in Veterans Square. This is a reproduction of a pamphlet from the veterans of World War I of the USA, incorporated back when they were doing fundraising and trying to get organized to get veterans benefits. And this is a reproduction of a photograph from the Times-Picayune of the day that this particular plaque was dedicated on Bonneville Boulevard in Metairie. Again, this one has been moved to Veterans Memorial Square in Metairie, where we are now. There's almost a dozen memorials here and monuments to veterans of various wars, veterans of military service who may not have been in foreign wars, but who have served, all here in the Veterans Memorial Boulevard median in Metairie, just west of Causeway Boulevard. On Friday, the parish held a ceremony to mark Veterans Day and to rededicate this monument and the Lions Club monuments. And now this one's out here and can be visited anytime. Dedicated to the memory of the veterans of World War I and honoring veterans of all wars who served their country in need. Erected by veterans of World War I, Jefferson Barracks, 1881. I'm Drew Broach for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune.